Welcome to Running for Real, a global community with a shared love and curiosity for running. Together we reconnect with the reasons why we love to run and discover ways it helps us become better people. Whether it's the quiet moments of a morning run while the rest of the world still sleeps, or befriending the strangers next to you at the start line of a race, we are here to connect with others who see running as the common thread that weaves our lives together. Come join me, Tina Muir, as I talk with people from all walks of life, united by a love of running. Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 388 of the Running for Real podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I'm excited that you are here and very excited for you to meet my guest today. Today is a very, I often say a real episode. Running for real after all. But this episode goes deeper than I think we've ever gone in some ways. And you're going to get to hear the realness of being a young parent, as in a teenager who is a parent, and working through that and how that helps shape you, how you have to parent yourself while you're also learning to parent another small human being. We got real in this episode today. So today I am very excited to welcome Ian Gonzalez to the podcast. Ian is the founder of Last Lap Cornerstore, which is a Black Latino-owned running store out of Chicago. You're going to hear some updates on that. He's also best known as the co-founder of 7 on Sundays, which is a run crew based in the south side of Chicago. And you're going to get to learn about Ian and his story. It's a really powerful and important conversation. I encourage you to share this one if it speaks to you. And thank you so much for joining us. I cannot wait to hear what you think. And let's get to this episode with Ian. Thank you to HydroPack for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast and for just being a partner of mine in 2024. I am so excited to be working alongside HydroPack. I have mentioned that I genuinely believe this is the future of sustainable racing, is us carrying our own fuel. It means we can have what we need when we need it. We don't have to rely on races. We don't have to rely on volunteers. We can carry our own stuff, do our part as runners, because most of us are not going for split second of where every second counts. And HydroPack has really developed these amazing innovations to make it as easy as possible for us. So today I want to talk about one of my favorite items, which is a Sky Flask Speed. Now, my favorite thing about this, when I think of a handheld, I think of this very boxy, awkward, have to scrunch and hold your fingers in place to keep the bottle in your hand. That is no longer the case. HydroPack has made this Sky Flask, which has a strap that fits beautifully on your hand. It's a soft flask, so your hand just kind of molds to it. It stays in place. It doesn't bounce. It doesn't chafe. It doesn't rub. And my favorite part is the flip top lid. One flick with your thumb and the whole lid opens to refill very easily and quickly, comes out easily. It breaks down or squashes down into such a tiny little space that fits anywhere. You could even stick it in your waistband. I really love this innovation, the Sky Flask Speed 500. If you are looking for a place to start with HydroPack, that is definitely where I would recommend you head. And if you go to hydropack.com/Tina, you can check out some of my favorites. You can go find out more about what HydroPack is up to. You also can go beyond running if you are someone who likes to go hiking or camping. There is also stuff on there for you. Go check out HydroPack. I'm excited for the work that they are doing, and I can't wait to hear what you think once you try it out. Ian, thank you so much for joining me on the Running for Real podcast. I'm excited that you are here.
Me too. This is super cool to be on somebody's podcast. This is awesome.
This is the first time of being on a podcast?
Yeah, outside of my own, yeah. This is the first time really? I'm a guest on somebody's podcast. It's awesome. Ooh.
Are you going to be able to resist the urge to ask me questions back?
No, I'm not.
It's okay if you do. I actually quite like it when it ends up being a bit more conversational. But I always find it hard when I'm being interviewed to, someone asks an interesting question to not be like, well, what about you? Which, sometimes is relevant and interesting, but sometimes if it's something that the listeners have heard 57 times already, about that host, that it can be a bit like uncomfortable for them to be like, oh, everyone actually already knows that. You're the only one that doesn't. You should have done your research. But with you, yeah, feel free, whatever way you want to play this. It's always interesting interviewing podcast hosts because you get the kind of things you're juggling in your mind at any one time of you're listening and you're trying to be as engaged and listening in that conversation, but at the same time, you're trying to decide, okay, which thread do I want to pull of what they're talking about?
It is
while you're listening.
How do you manage
we'll see
that?
Where we
how
go
do you
here.
manage that? Because that is crazy. Like trying to listen to somebody talk while also thinking, one, remembering what they said that you want to ask a follow-up question to, and then being attentive. Because my face sometimes betrays me. So like I am involved, but then like I'll hear something like, okay, that's a good follow-up. And then my face is like, I am not paying attention to you right now, but please keep going with the same level of intention and excitement.
Yeah. So don't take you as a partner to a poker match is what you're saying.
Poker game. I haven't even learned the game. It's a waste of time. If I have a good hand, oh yes. If I feel like I'm going home with the money, yes, I will give it away.
Yeah, I've never played, but I would imagine I would be pretty terrible at that. So I don't even want to try. I actually don't think I've ever said this on the podcast. I really don't like card games. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's my parents. My parents never played like games with me ever. And maybe that's it. But whenever anyone is like, let's play poker, let's do something like some kind of card game, I know it's sad, isn't it? I'm like, oh, come on. I don't want to be the awkward one here. I don't know what it is. I have some kind of like mental resistance to anything related to a card. So diagnose me. Maybe I should have a psychologist diagnose me at some point. But yes, I will probably never play poker.
Not even like a really good, solid game of Uno?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I think Uno I could just about let slide. I can just about handle Uno, which is a really sad place, right? You know, when Uno is your boundary, but that's kind of where I am.
I'm here for that. And like, so I'm not a very good spades player and stuff like that. I'm super out of practice and I just don't have the intuition for it anymore. But in high school, when I learned how to play it, that's how, because I didn't have a job at high school, but I had a child, unfortunately. And, but that's how I used to buy diapers for Julius.
Wow.
They're little spades, lunch table. Get a couple bucks, buy diapers.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's dive into that then, shall we? Oh, there's so many areas I could go into, and you have told me that no area is off limits. So I'm going to dive in. Yeah, I'm going to dive in kind of deep with that. I mean, that is firstly an extraordinary thing to do as a teenager, be raising someone else, be taking care of someone else to that level that a baby does when you are still a child growing up yourself.
Oh my
God. I mean, how often do you stop and think about that part that you did that and made it through that? And from what I see, have, a good relationship from that. So yeah, reflecting back now, do you feel grateful for yourself for what you worked through in that process? Like that, for example, of trying to make a little bit of money to buy diapers, something that is 100% necessary for a baby.
So that baby that we're talking about is just turned 18 on the 16th. And it like, y'all, I am like 34 years old. I'll be 35 in April. My child just turned 18 years old. And literally, like, I've been in the mud. I've been in the thick of it. But for his 18th birthday, I was just like, yo, like you were, when I turned 18, he was like 1 going on 2. Like, it's crazy. And then I look at him, like he's dope, super creative, very in tune with emotions and stuff like that. like super intelligent and stuff like that. Of course he's, teenage boy, a lot of angst and stuff like that. Not super perfect, but super awesome. But I just like, oh my, I brought you home at like 17 years old. So I raised him without his mother since he was like 3 months old. So he's been living with me. So as far as having a good relationship with him, that's debatable. We've dealt with each other our entire lives. And like my mom told me, you don't really like your children. Once they turn 6, like teenagers, you don't really like them again until they're like 25. So, but yeah, I know I'm in the thick of it. But it's just, no, I have no idea how I got here. Grateful is a good word. I am super grateful that I was able to figure this out. In hindsight, now having a 6-year-old, I say a lot of the shortcomings that I had as a young parent. He definitely amount of time, he got a lot of it. Like he was with me everywhere. Like that boy is my shadow. Okay. Like, anything that I was doing, he was pretty much there. Like people would have to reorganize the way they were showing up in spaces because if I was showing up, they knew my child was coming with me.
Sure.
But what I've learned now with a 6-year-old, which August, is like, oh, just because I spent so much time with Julius, that time might not always have been quality time, like high quality time. And so just reflecting back on that sometimes makes me feel guilty, but also helps me to be a better parent now. But then it also makes me give myself more grace as a parent and give myself more grace in my relationship with my son at 18 years old. It's a weird place to be because he's a young man now. I couldn't imagine him bringing home a child. Like, I don't know how my mom did it. Like, it should have been illegal for me to bring him home.
Yeah.
Like, it was wild. I don't even know how to answer your question, honestly.
No. Well, thank you for I mean, you did it. Like you did answer the question. But I'm sure it is hard to process. And being 35 myself, like I barely feel like I'm ready right now to handle a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. And so to think of you doing that, as we said, while you're still growing, like you said about your being kids 25, like it's not like once you're 60, like when you're 16, you think you know everything, but you've still got a lot of growing to do. And so
what made me think that I can take care of another human being? I remember when I came into the kitchen, it was after I came into the kitchen and I asked my mom, I was like, hey mom, can I bring Julius home? Where he's living right now, it's not in the best place and stuff like that. I just want to bring him home. And it was only supposed to be for the summer. And it turned into like forever, unfortunately. But I couldn't imagine Julius coming to me and having that. And then me having to say yes to him. It's like, how did my mom say, yeah, bring this child home. You definitely can take care of this child. I remember the first night, my cousin, who was a year younger than me, happened to spend the night at our house. And we were like husband and wife. It was like Julius was crying. Of course, he probably like missed his mom and stuff. And like I'm tapping my cousin, like, "Hey, bro, it's your turn." He like, "Nah, man, it's your turn." I'm like, "Nah, it's your turn." He like, "It's your child. Get up." Yeah. It's beautiful though. But I'm super grateful to have had that experience and to continue to have that experience. Even just watching him being a young adult, he goes off to college in less than 6 months. That'll be the first time since most of my formative years of my life that he will not be by my side. And it's kind of scary.
Do you, all parents that their kid is going off to college find it difficult? In many ways, I'd imagine it's even harder for you because you, in some ways, maybe I'm wrong, probably don't know who you are without him being there, right? Because you've grown up with him right there.
Damn, you're right. Oh my God. August might be saving me. So my 6-year-old is August. He might be saving me because when Julius leaves the house, like majority of my identity for a very long time has been that of dad. Even in some of my friendships, I've been played the role of being responsible, being the caretaker. And honestly, what I've been learning right now through this journey of self that I've been going through in the last like 4 or 5 months, is just being in service in relationships, even romantic relationships, is how I feel worthy of someone's love.
You've realized that over the last few years, or
over the last few months.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, it's super new, like tip of the iceberg type stuff. But it's like me being a dad is so much part of my identity. It is ridiculous. So like I don't know what life is going to be, because my 6-year-old, I only get him every other weekend, unfortunately, right now. And so there's going to be so much time that I will have where I'm not spent being an active daily dad. And it's going to be wild. I don't even know how I'm going to handle that.
Yeah, that's so true. So then there's so many things here that, you know, what a beautiful thing to have, in that you had this truly hard, introspective, challenging experience of raising a child by yourself, although I'm assuming your mum was around for a lot of it there.
It takes a village.
Yeah. And now going through it again, as you said, in bits essentially, but still going through it again, having to get like a second experience of it as an adult, but still, I would imagine, untangling that part of you that never got the chance to live out the end of your childhood, essentially, because you had to be serious. And I'm assuming that meant kind of all the things you would have been doing as a teenager were kind of axed, because you had to be there for him. That had to be the priority always. And so, yeah, reflect back on that before we get into, I would imagine, the things that you're doing now, how they are a big part of your development and what you went through. But with that reflection, knowing that what is some of the good and what is some of the challenging that came from not getting to live the way that a typical teenager would in your situation have lived?
You know what? Honestly, like having a child as a teenager definitely changed the way I experience life, experience those years. But I will say I still experience those years. Like I didn't all of a sudden just have this super high level of maturity and stuff like that. Like when I say Julius was with me everywhere, he was with me everywhere. Like, so in my late teens to early 20s, like I was on the music and fashion scene here in Chicago with like the streetwear boutiques and stuff like that. Like in my early 20s, I was managing local artists. So Julius was also pulling up to concerts with me, like local concerts and in those type of environments, at the studio with me. Thankfully, because I did have family support, you know, my mom wasn't always super gun-ho to babysit, but she definitely did. So I still had, you know, my social life, and my friends and my community also understood that part of being in relationship with me meant being in a relationship with my child and stuff like that. So, I mean, definitely like, I feel like I still got to experience like that good portion of that college life, a good portion of that childhood, just, you know, kind of with a little companion with me and stuff like that. So I can't even really speak to it, because all of my friends around me didn't have children, and we were doing very similar things. I will say internally, I was very intentional about the things that I did. I knew like there was an end game to everything that I was doing. You know, like I wasn't super aimless and stuff. The only point in my life after I had a child where I became kind of aimless was after I after the music business stopped being my goal, and I just had like these few years, I just didn't know who I was, who I wanted to be, where I wanted to go and stuff like that. And that wasn't a carefree time for me. Like maybe if I didn't have a child, like that created a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety because I did have responsibilities and I needed to figure it out and stuff.
Yeah.
But no, like I still did stupid stuff in my late teens, like, I mean, I don't know. I was about to share some stuff, but it's just like, yeah, I still did stupid teenage shit. Like I was not impervious to that.
Taking care of your health isn't always easy, but it should at least be simple. That's why for the last 5 years, I've been drinking AG1 every day. No exceptions, 1 scoop mixed in water once a day, every day, and it makes me feel good. I feel energized. I can take on the day knowing no matter what happens, no matter what my food intake looks like, I have taken care of myself. That's because each serving of AG1 delivers my daily dose of vitamins, minerals, pre- and probiotics, and more. It's a powerfully healthy habit that's also powerfully simple. I know with AG1, I'm getting this high quality nutrition. Every batch goes through this rigorous testing process so you know it's safe. Their ingredients are sourced for absorption, potency, and nutrient density. If there's one product I had to recommend to elevate your health, it's AG1. And that's why I've partnered with them for so long. So if you want to take ownership of your health, start with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 and K2 and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase exclusively at drinkag1.com/Tina. That's drinkag1.com/Tina. Check it out. Oh, and that's, I thank you for being vulnerable with that because that is expected. You were a teenager. You can't, like, it's not like your brain suddenly jumps to 30-year-old who gets this. There's always going to be those choices. So then let's talk about the transition from that period to now where you are, where running is the kind of maybe heart of what you are, what you do. Obviously, there's many facets to you. But with Last Lap Cornerstore, with 7 on Sundays, you were doing things that allow others to find themselves in running, to feel welcome in running. I had Ricky Rock, who lives here in St. Louis with me on a few months ago, and he talked about transitioning away from his life as a rapper and producer, and how everyone in his world was like, what are you doing? Like, hard to imagine this person they knew in this whole other life that seemed so different to the one he was living before. So what about for you moving to get to where you are now? How did running come into the picture? Let's start with that.
I mean, it's funny because like running came into the picture because of me being a dad. I got the job at Nike running store. I applied because here I am having a second child, and it's like, okay, I still don't necessarily know what I want to do, but I kind of really need to get serious about my finances and making money. Like, so Julius got it out the mud with me. Like, Julius was thick and thin with me, and good or bad, like as an adult now, I realized there were things that I did not provide, or I was incapable of providing for him and stuff like that on a very consistent basis, because like I've been a hustler like since before he was, born and stuff. There's nothing I ever wanted to be that revolved around me working a corporate job, being an employee, from chef to singer to zoologist. Everything was like outside, but now here I am. I have a child. I have a second child coming in. It's like, okay, like let me get one of these jobs and maybe move up a corporate ladder, da 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 da. So I applied to the job at Nike, the Nike Running Bucktown store, and they hired me around the time of the Chicago Marathon. And I was exposed to the running world. I was exposed to the Chicago Marathon. I lived here my whole life. I didn't even know Chicago had a marathon, let alone a world major, you know? And the biggest eye-opener was most of my coworkers, which is probably why I got hired, most of my coworkers and the person, Gabby, who hired me, was all running. Majority of them were running the Chicago Marathon. And none of these look like what I picture a marathoner in my head, like some super fit, you know, athlete, maybe some muscles or super skinny. Like, you know, they didn't look like they was all about to pull up on the Olympic team and, you know, get things popping. Like marathoning was like, I feel like that was top performance. They was like regular people. Like some of these people were in school. Some of these people were in this their second career. Like they didn't had a whole career in life behind them and stuff like that. And they just looking for something chill to do. It made me feel like I can do it too. And then also like I'm an Aries. So like I was the only person there who wasn't a runner. I was the only person there who had not run a marathon. So I felt left out and I was like, I need that.
So how soon after starting at the store did you sign up for was it Chicago you signed up for?
I signed up at like when Chicago opened up for the next year, I signed up. I ain't even, no hesitation, signed up. I was not a high school athlete. I did not ever want to run. Okay. How on the level of like, my kids might listen to this is an adult podcast. Like where can I go?
You can go wherever you want. I can put an E on it and it's...
Okay. Cut this out if you want to. This is how much of an athlete I wasn't. I remember like kind of like my high school sweetheart. I was like 185 when I met her. When we finally broke up in college and stuff like that, I was definitely not 185 anymore. But she was trying to convince me to lose weight. And I remember one day she offered me sex to just do one loop around the Forest Preserve.
Which is how far?
Maybe 1.2, 1.3 miles.
Okay.
Oh my God. I made that experience so horrible for the both of us. It was like, I just did not want to do that. You couldn't even motivate me with sex from a beautiful woman to run. And then here I am, maybe 6-7 years later, signing up for a marathon. And it's been my life ever since then. It's wild. I don't even know how I've gotten here.
And at that point, when you signed up for the marathon, where were you at in terms of like, what had you run? What was the longest run you'd done at that point?
Maybe 3 miles.
Oh, wow. Whew, you had a long way to go to be ready for that.
Maybe a hard maybe 3 miles. And not consistently. Like if we talking about what distance have you ever run at one given time? Maybe 3 miles.
Okay, so then how did you get from that to, was it, I've got in, okay, I'm going to take this seriously, or did you do I'll be fine, I'll figure it out, and then cram the last month? What was in
my mind, I was running a 3-hour marathon. I'm getting out here. I'm going to bust my ass. Yes, I am going to fuck this up. This is going to be crazy. I remember my Matthew Champa was one of my coworkers. He was like, slow down, cowboy. Like, let's relax. Let's just focus on finishing the marathon. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, I guess. Like, but 3 hours sounded like a long time. 4 hours sounded like a long time to be doing anything. So I was like, this is what I'm going to do. No point of reference. My first finish was like 5 hours and 30 minutes.
I mean, that's still solid for a first.
It was wild. I'm proud of myself. I'm happy I finished it. But so I ran hot chocolate that fall, of course, Chicago situation. I was hurt because I signed up for the 3 miles and I realized you don't get a medal when you run a 3 miles. You have to run the other distance, which nobody informed me of. And then my next race was the Chicago Marathon. Like there was no races in between that. So most of my training I did by myself. I came into the Nike ethos and atmosphere at the tail end of the Nike Run Club here in Chicago. So most of my runs was by myself on the lakefront. And it was during that training that I fell in love with running.
What was it about it that really got you?
Every single day during that, everything over 3 miles was the first time I ever ran that distance. Every single, on a Thursday, when I did my first 6 mile tempo, that was a celebration. That was the first time I ever ran that distance. And it was just every single week, I was doing something that I thought was impossible. That just wasn't in my wheelhouse. And I remember when I hit double digits, I've told this story a million times. So if any of my friends listen to this, I'm sorry. But like when I hit double digits, I remember coming home, salt all on my body, face, like, so we in our 30s. So we were at the tail end of parents still spanking their kids. And so, you ever like did a silent cry where like your face kind of tuned up, but like nothing came out?
Yeah.
I would come home and that was happening to my face. And I wasn't sad. I wasn't in pain. There was nothing wrong, but that was just happening. And I tell my little brother about this experience. And like I said, this is that when I was hitting double digits. He looks at me, he goes, bro, you're just running those bad vibes out. And I was like, that's crazy. You know, like if emotions are energy and energy is never destroyed, only transferable, think about all of the pent up energy I probably had in like down in myself. You know, like I've never exhausted myself to this extent. And it's like, I've never experienced that since then. And it was wild. That was the best summer. I felt good all the time. And I just got so much up off me.
And that was in the build up to the marathon, right?
Yeah,
that was that first year. Okay. So then when did you start having thoughts of, I want others to feel this way? Or, you know, let's start with that.
So I want to say it was like after I run my first marathon and I'm in this running community. I'm in the local Chicago running community because Nike was doing events. Now I'm in this ethos, right? But a lot of these running experiences that was happening in the city were on the north side of Chicago, like in the white neighborhoods. And me, Aaron, and Craig, we don't really remember who started the conversation. But
so they were they would go to this run club.
Yeah. And so actually, so Aaron and Craig are co-founders with me for 7 on Sundays Run Club. We met at the Nike running store. We all worked together. Actually, Aaron was like a supervisor and stuff like that, which is it's like really interesting. But like, I remember my customers, like I would see them outside of them shopping. You know, like they lived in this neighborhood. They ran in this neighborhood. Like some of them, I would see their dog 6 minutes before them because the dog came in for a snack during their walk and stuff like that, you know? So it's like, I was like, damn, bro, like it would be so cool if we were able to experience this sport in our own neighborhoods. Like, why do I need to travel an hour to enjoy running? And 7 on Sundays was just created because like 7 a.m. on Sundays was like the only time in our rotating schedule that we knew we were free. And then we also didn't want to meet up to run 3 miles. So we was like, so 7 miles just kind of fell in, you know, it's like, let's at least run an hour. And it just happened to be 7 miles at some point. And our friends started to join us. Some of my running friends started to join us, which were primarily like Northsiders and stuff like that, people we knew in the running community. And then after like months and months and months of just the three of us running, strangers started showing up, like one or two. And then a few months after that, other people we didn't know started showing up. And it's just like, now all of a sudden we have this community here on the south side of Chicago, enjoying running on the south side of Chicago.
Mm-hmm. If someone hasn't spent time exploring around Chicago beyond, the Loop, which is what they might think of, or the, what's the Wrigley Field?
Yeah, that's the name like of north. The thing. That's like dumb north.
Yeah, yep, or the aquarium, that area. What is like Bronzeville? So you said it was an hour commute for you. We're talking South Side, and those people that were showing up were primarily people coming from the Bronzeville area, where they were people coming from the North Side coming to you. Paint a bit of a picture for people. Yeah, what the different what it's like there when maybe they've never explored around Chicago beyond the touristy traps.
So I would say we've throughout the years we've had runners that come to 7 on Sundays as far as like Rogers Park. Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's further north than I am south in Chicago. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we've had people come from all over, but majority of our runners are from the local area within like a 5 to 6 mile radius of where we meet up. But when I had the store, it started attracting more people who were local to Chicago, or what you call those people who moved from somewhere else, transplants, and had never been to the South Side. And then sometimes when people come into town for races, they will come join us on a run on the South Side. Mm-hmm. And everybody is surprised at how beautiful the South Side is. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's definitely an eye-opener for a lot of local runners and a lot of people who have visit the South Side. I think people just kind of maybe expect a war zone, expect to just be unsafe all the time and things like that. But people come, they quickly get comfortable, and they quickly enjoy the things that they see. I mean, in Bronzeville, you can throw a rock and hit a historical site in Bronzeville. I'm right by Washington Park. I'm right by the University of Chicago, which is a prominent school in the entire, one of the most prominent schools in the entire country. Sure. We got the lakefront, which is gorgeous, and also a lot less runners than the north. Our counterparts on the north side running on the lakefront, and it's just like a breath of fresh air, because they also get the opportunity to run in a new place.
Yes, I love that, and thank you for sharing that. So you started 7 on Sundays. It grew within the community, as with many of my previous podcast guests, many of our mutual friends. You wanted to find a way to show for others, who potentially weren't runners in your area, to be able to see you out there and maybe consider themselves, could I do that? Maybe I should try that. I might show up and do that. Tell us about the intention behind that piece of having it at home, knowing that representation matters.
Of having what at home? What do you mean?
Just like starting your runs from there, being an example for others to see.
I mean, that was part of the ethos of why me, Aaron, and Craig also want to run on the South Side. It's like, Black people do run. Like, like read Allison Desia's book, like Running Wild Black. Like, I'm sorry, I've had like at least 3 cups of coffee, so I'm like trying to keep my tongue kind of chill.
Oh, you're good.
But like
you're
Black people be running. We've been running, especially in distance, since the jump. Okay, but I think it was super cool. So like when it was just me, Aaron, and Craig running, we were running like mostly, and we ended up meeting on 56 and Stony Island, which is kind of like on the southeastern tip of Hyde Park, right? Which Hyde Park is a multicultural neighborhood. It started white, been white for a very long time, but as time has gone by, it's become a lot more multicultural and diverse. And then so we would run south from 56 to Stony Island into South Shore, which is predominantly Black. And I remember like we would get honks. Like people would be like, okay, I see y'all. Because these are three. Craig is like older than us. He's like in his 50s and stuff. But me and Aaron are like in our late 20s, early 30s at this point and stuff like that. And it's just like people are honking, seeing three Black men out here like running, shirts off sometimes. In the high shorts and stuff like that. You feel me? Things you would see like the white boys doing on the lakefront up north. And, we get people on the bus stop. We get the same old man every single Sunday. I don't know what he was doing on that bus stop, but he'll be out there. Pick your knees up, young blood. Pick your knees up. And through 7 on Sundays, and also my participation in another Southside run club called Gumbo Fit. I didn't found that one, but I was one of the starting captains when they were forming. But it's just like so many of the runners that I've met over the years have gotten into running because they saw Black people, like they saw themselves doing it.
Yeah.
It was just like my experience when I started working at Nike. It was like, oh shit, Gloria can do it. Charles can do it. Like Matthew can do it. Like this was mind blowing. And it doesn't speak less of those names or those people. It's just like, oh my God. You look like me, like a regular person. Like this makes me feel I can do it. And yeah, it's been a transformative experience for me. And if I can jump out on a ledge and say it's been transformative for the runners who joined us.
Thank you so much to Tracksmith for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast and for supporting Running for Real in general. Tracksmith has done so much to allow us to really chase after our dreams, make big changes. Those of you who have thanked me for the work that I have done, a lot of that is because of the support Tracksmith has given me. I am so appreciative of them. And beyond supporting me, they also want to support you. Have you heard about Tracksmith's PR bonus? I could tell you today about the Brighton base long sleeve that is my favorite, the Session Speed shorts, the Lane 5 shorts. I could tell you about any of those things, how they're long lasting, they're durable, they are beautifully made, comfortable. I literally couldn't pick a single thing wrong with any of them, but I want to talk to you about this PR bonus. So Tracksmith believes that chasing a personal best is both core to the amateur spirit and what makes it meaningful. And yes, pros have their efforts rewarded, acknowledged. The focus is very much on them. But they want to change that. If you, and I'm talking to you listening to this right now, if you set a PR or a PB between January 1st and April 30th in any standard distance run or track and field, from the 100 to the marathon, the triple jump, the shot put, anything else, you can earn a $100 credit towards your next Tracksmith purchase. $100 credit. So I encourage you, if you are feeling like you want to chase down a goal, you can submit your PR. They'll give you a $100 credit to go get yourself something from Tracksmith. Has to be done in 2024. And you can only use it once. But I definitely encourage you to go check it out. You can go to tracksmith.com/Tina. You will see a heading there that says PR bonus where you can learn about that. Also check out the other amazing items that they have to offer. As I said, these are long-lasting, durable items, and that's that is the number one thing you can do as a consumer is buy quality, long-lasting items when you need to purchase something and use it for a long time. You will be able to do that with Tracksmith. Thank you to Tracksmith for sponsoring Running for Real, for supporting me, and go to tracksmith.com/Tina. Absolutely. No, I believe that 100%. And, I think I mentioned this to you when where did we go for lunch? It was some with Sid. We went to some bar. It was a dive bar, but it was like, when they playing like, it was like some kind of naked women on the screen, like doing some kind of slow,
like some 70s horror
dance
movie.
Yeah. And then we were eating burgers was there like heavy metal music playing or something? It was a very interesting restaurant. But we had lunch in there where were we? Austin.
Yep.
And where was I going with this? I told you how the amount of people that have brought up 7 on Sundays to me is in the dozens. Like, not necessarily people from Chicago, like just, you've got to have 7 on Sundays. You got to like learn about 7 on Sundays. Like it was brought up over and over. And I think I mentioned this to you that at first I thought they were talking about there's this like bougie granola company or muesli or something that's called 7 Sundays. And at first I was like, is this something to do with that? Like, I've never eaten that, but I was like, maybe there's something special to this. And then I realized they were talking about a group. But yes, no, you definitely have impacted many lives, and, really allow people to see themselves. And I talked about this with Ricky when he was on the show, but I recently went to one of Ricky's group runs for Run STL. And I got to see, Ricky and I were running towards the end of this run. And this guy like blasts by us to finish this 3-mile run. And Ricky says, this guy was a friend of mine from the music world. I never thought he would be a runner, but he saw me doing it. He came out, and this guy was like, I'm going to run a PR. Like, he was so proud of himself. And it was a really cool experience to see this guy who never saw himself as ever would have considered running. And there he was, life changed, all because of seeing Ricky out there doing it. So I in St. Louis, I got to witness that for myself. But as you know, kind of similar cities here in terms of like very, very separated, very like different areas that are kind of not really intermingling. And so, I am sure that's been the case for many, many people.
What areas do you run in St. Louis? Is it just primarily in your neighborhood where you run? Do you venture out? Like, how do you maneuver through the streets in St. Louis?
Yeah, generally I don't really like running from my house, but just with the age of my kids and the ease, no, I mostly run from home, which, is not the most exciting thing in the world, but I do try and get to other places or, in instances like that where I can support someone else in what they're doing, whenever I can. But yeah. And especially with when I travel, I get to kind of explore new places. I mostly just stick around here because it's the quickest place to go. So yeah. I
love that. That makes sense. I mean, being a parent is like, while running, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. I have done, I like to support local races when I can. There's a really cool, I don't tend to race shorter distances that much, especially as I've had an injury over the last year, but there's some really cool races that are put on, around the community. And one of my favorites is, my husband works at the University of Missouri in St. Louis, which is right next to Ferguson. And so I do go run there sometimes, almost like, this is maybe getting off on a tangent, but like almost in an act of, not defiance, but there's so much negative stereotyping that happens with Ferguson. And I like to run over there sometimes almost to prove a point of like, stop judging this town that has been through so much and has so much to offer and is a beautiful place and has really cool restaurants in it. So my family and I, we, especially because Steve works there, we go out there a lot, intentionally to try and do our little part to show that, like, this is a really cool place to be. We go to their farmers market and things like that. But yeah, running wise, unfortunately, I mostly stay at home.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I mean, like that's real. And like, I think that's also like part of the point, like it's not lost on me where I live. Like it's not what CNN makes it out to be, but I mean, yeah, like especially in the summertime, sometimes when we travel into different neighborhoods and run in different spaces, like when we ran in the hundreds a couple summers ago, I was nervous. Like it was very important for me that, because sometimes when we run it, our group gets kind of spread out. But it was very important to me, almost to the point where I was like, I know I was annoying Aaron, that our club stays together. Like, yeah, I grew up in these spaces. I'm familiar. I'm cool. I can navigate this. But I'm bringing people who are not from this area. Also, this area is not accustomed to runners. So like being in the streets is a little weird and stuff like that. And it's like, but also like the Hundreds is not necessarily a super safe place to be. You know, like there's pockets on the South Side where no, I would not recommend you go to a farmer's market. I would not recommend you go to that store over there and stuff like that. And we've been in those areas, and not necessarily an act of defiance, but just an act of exposure. It's like exposing our runners to these neighborhoods, but also exposing these neighbors to us running.
Yeah.
You know? But it's like real, and it's nothing wrong with being honest about where you are and what you're doing in that space. You know, we can't operate in a space of ignorance, but it's also like, but also we can still do these things here.
Yeah.
You know, like
absolutely.
There's areas in Chicago where I've run and felt safer and more comfortable and stuff like that. But I also wouldn't be walking through there. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like even like the guys like hanging out on the street on the block and stuff like that. Like if I'm walking through there, you know, like, yeah, I might get messed with if I look like a victim at that point in time. If I look like a stain, look like they got something I want. But me running, they like, oh shit, bro, like I see you out here, like go ahead, G, let me run with you, you know, like you know, stuff like that. Because they see the joy, you know, like, you know, like they want to participate in the fun too. But it's like so many people that I've grown up with and so many people in my community, sometimes what they're not exposed to as many options.
Sure.
And so while they out there having fun, they're having fun in their own way. You know what I'm saying? They enjoying times with their homies in their own way, hanging out, maybe smoking, maybe drinking, hollering at a couple females, you know, like doing stuff like that. But it's like me and my group being out here in these spaces, like, yo, you could also have fun this way.
Yeah.
And maybe I won't catch you, but maybe you'll express that to your son. Maybe you express that to your daughter. You know, maybe you express that to your cousin. Like, hey, bro, you ain't got to be out here with us. Like, go do this, that, and the third, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what it's about. It's about exposure.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. And then taking that onto the next level, tell us about how Last Lap Cornerstore came into the picture and what that then meant to you in the community.
So I think Last Lap Cornerstore is a better answer to a question that you asked earlier.
Oh, go for it.
Because Last Lap was 7 on Sundays was for me. Like I wanted a space where I could be authentically myself, because authentically Black. Because even when I would show up to a Nike and Heartbreak run or like, you know, I code switch. I was around mostly white people. You know, I saw the few Black people, gave them a head and nod, you know, kept it pumping with the people I knew. But, you know, I had to code switch when I was there. I had to be presentable. I had to make sure, you know, like here I am running up, you know, and maybe the people running the event are a few white women. And I want to let them know, hey, I'm not here to fuck with y'all. I'm here to participate, you know, like, so then I have to minimize myself. But like, I wanted a space where I could be authentically me, authentically Black, you know, an authentic Latin man. And that's what 7 on Sundays was. You know, it's grown into a space that's very multicultural, but no matter where you're from, no matter what your background is, white, Black, Hispanic, Asian, whatever, you know, when you come here, you understand what this space is. And it's a place for us to be ourselves. And Last Lap was like after years of work of 7 on Sundays, doing Gumbo Fit, helping expand in our local Chicago community, help making it more, creating more connectivity between the run clubs and stuff like that, just opening that space. I started to realize like, okay, whether it's directly or indirectly, I've gotten maybe over 100 runners to the start line for their first race and stuff like that, you know. But what I realized is like those runners who were running and training on the south side, they still had that glass ceiling. Yeah. You know, like we still had to leave our neighborhoods to get our shoes, leave our neighborhood to get those basic necessities that we needed to train for a race or just enjoy running. And I was like, here I am bringing in people into the sport just for them to have the same struggles I had during my first marathon training. Yeah. That first race that I was training for. And I was like, okay. And this was something that kind of came to me as I went through the process of starting Last Lap. And because I started Last Lap in an hour. Like the journey really started in like maybe 1 hour. I got tired of watching Netflix. I started thinking about my life and what I was going to do post-pandemic, what I want to do, what made me happy. And then, you know, just through this thought process, this concept came up. And through this process, I was like, yeah, this is for me as a person who loves being an entrepreneur and wants to be able to balance time making money with time being a father. I don't want to make that sacrifice. But also, I continue to be in service to my community in this way by providing a space for them to get the things that they need. And it's been awesome.
Yeah. So then opening up a store, the first and only Black-owned running store in Chicago, how did you obviously wanted to make it in a location that was easy for people to access from your community, the people that were joining you for 7 on Sundays, but there's also some other elements involved because what you mentioned right at the beginning of what, most people think of, and I'm well aware that I literally fit the exact stereotype of what people think of. But that is, not the bodies, not the things that people are looking for when it comes to supporting and providing for those runners in your community. So how did you go about that piece of it, of making sure that you were a different running store in that element too? I'm assuming that went into it. I mean, other than offering Pioneer's streetwear, performance streetwear on your shelves.
I mean, I think the biggest thing was me. It's just like when a runner of color came into my store, they wasn't they was talking to somebody who understood. Like we spoke the same language, like we culturally, on a cultural level and stuff like that. Like I understood what they meant. I understood what they needed. I understood the references and the things, the language and the cultural references and just who I am when I'm going through the products and talking about why this shoe is better and that. It lands differently because it's coming from a mirror. You feel me? Versus if I walk into Flea Feed, and Flea Feed has, Black sales reps of color and stuff like that, but it's a white space. Walking in there and it's like, you already feel like you're going to be judged. Like there's that gap that needs to be, there's that wall that needs to be broken down. Versus when somebody walks into my store, I'm greeting them the way they normally get greeted, like very casual, very relaxed. But then also, like, if we talk about on a more technical point, outside of the environment that I created, was like, I also had the sizes that a lot of my runners want to need, especially the women who came into the store. Like, I'm primarily serving Black and brown women. And I remember when they would come into the Nike store on the north side, the Nike store led with small mediums. And then the largest would be less than that. Extra larges would be a lot less than that. And then we might have a 2X. And, I would have these bigger sizes. For me, I sold more larges and mediums, medium larges and extra larges, just because Black women's bodies are just built differently.
Yeah.
It's just they needed more space in the thigh area. They wanted the high waist joints. Like I didn't carry the low waist joints. So they want the high waist joint just to make sure things wasn't pulling in certain places. And having that on a consistent basis made a difference, because now the customer feels like, oh, this store is for me. And it's the same thing as a man. Like me, I got thick thighs too, so I need to make sure that I have the stuff that's necessary for me, necessary for Aaron, who's like 6 something, thick everywhere, so it's also having that.
Yeah. And Last Lap, you are now entering into the next stage of growth, trying to figure out where you want to be, what that space looks like. Tell us the update on where you're at with that.
So just like a little point of reference for anybody who is not familiar with my story, Last Lap, I was operating out of a 50-foot shipping container in Boxville, which is like an incubator for minority-owned businesses, minority meaning ethnicity, race, but also like sex. So a lot of most of my neighbors were women-owned businesses, and it was awesome. It was pretty cool. I had 400 square feet and stuff like that. It gave me an opportunity to really incubate, grow the business, learn a lot about running a retail business, and it was fun. It was unique. But unfortunately, where that site sits was not in one of the economic corridors in Bronzeville or the southeast side. And while it was great for introduction to like start my business, it had a lower barrier of entry for me because I didn't start up with hella savings, hella credit cards, shouts out to the pandemic, we was getting money left and right. This was definitely a government funded project, but it just hit a plateau, and I realized like, hey, in order for me to grow this business the way I need it to be, in order for it to be sustainable, because even though I'm serving a community and I'm providing a space, like I also need to live. Like I have to pay bills, like I got children, and it kind of plateaued, and it just wasn't able to grow to a place where it could provide just my basic necessities. So I had to make that hard decision to kind of close down. I wasn't in a place where I can afford. I didn't have access to traditional capital, like loans from banks, talking to different investors and stuff like that. So I had to make that tough decision to close down, to kind of like reorganize and figure things out. Fast forward to here now, I've had the opportunity presented itself to kind of like strike and put the feelers out there to see if the community wanted Last Lap back, see if I can entice some people to maybe help bring it back. See, like, I've been away for a while. Do y'all miss me? Like, like I want this back. Do you want this back? Because it's going to be scary. It's going to be stressful. It's going to take a lot to bring this back in a meaningful way, in a way that I know it can thrive as a business. And the reception has been awesome. I was featured in a 3-part series by Brooks called More Than a Store. I was featured alongside Renegade and Milestone Running. And I think Renegade might have been open longer. And then there's Milestone, but they're both doing really well. Renegade is about to open a second store. Milestone is, in a good place. And then there's my store. Okay, there's my story. And it was funny because like I think Brooks was having a hard time with this piece because my episode doesn't necessarily have a happy ending to it. But my story shows a realistic
For sure.
piece to being a business. Like Victor's cool. Like it's not taken away from the other two stores. They figured it out. They were able to do it, but it's not always a straight line. And I think that's what my story shows. So in doing that, I was kind of convinced the company who shot each of these series, called Wonder Camp, kind of developed a friendship with them. They've been very supportive. They came to me and was like, hey, why don't you try a GoFundMe? I was introduced to the owner of Slim Pickens. And then also my what do you call those? My not advisor, my mentor, Chris Hardner from Naperville Running Company. He was like, let's just get us a shot, see how people would feel while the story's out there. And so 2 weeks before its release, I decided to do this, see where it is. And I've gotten a lot of good responses, not just like people just donating, but like people calling me up, organizations like, hey, I want to help you make this happen. Like, how do we get this store back open, especially here in Bronzeville? And it's been a blessing. Oh my God, I'm so grateful. It's been super awesome. And if the ball keep rolling the way it is and people are doing the things that they say they're going to do, I really see myself being open maybe this year.
Amazing. That's so exciting. And I encourage listeners, I will put links not only to the Brooks little series, the episode on Last Lap, to the GoFundMe if you want to go support. And if anyone knows of someone who would be interested in this, I mean, feel free to reach out to me and I'll connect you to Ian, or find Ian online. Is there anything else you want to share today? I feel like we've covered so much, and yet there's so many more things I could dive into here. Any other reflections just as you've gone through this, of full circle moment that all that you've done in the last 17, 18 years? I mean, it may feel like you were surviving most of the time, but I really hope you are looking back with pride of what you've done and been able to give to others, even while still discovering who you are. So any last reflections?
I don't know. That's such a big question. Yeah, I have no idea what the fuck is going on. Majority of the time, I'm just out here just doing things and moving with intention and stuff like that. But it's beautiful. I'm grateful more than anything. I'm grateful for the opportunity. Like I think most of us, like, if you are not a narcissistic person, you battle with imposter syndrome, on the regular basis. So like, I think I called myself a community leader for the first time the other day in public, and it was very uncomfortable. Did not feel great saying that. But just kind of owning the things, because I can't answer your question until I fully own the things that I've done and where I am now. And it doesn't mean like I need to put myself on a pedestal and I'm better than those around me, or like I become what's the word I'm looking for, when you just expect stuff to come to you and things like that.
I don't know.
Right. Anyway, but like, I'm not saying become that person, entitled. But it's like also like entitled. Yeah. Like I don't want to be entitled, but it's like, but I've also done some things, and I've made a difference. The Chicago running community does not look the same today than it did before 7 on Sundays. And this isn't all me. Like, I'm not saying I did all of the work. I mean, there's been many hands in this pot, but I have grown to appreciate what it is that I have done, what my role has been to affect change in this community. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
I've been told that it's a lot more welcoming, not just in my club, but in the greater Chicago Run Club community. It's a lot more connectivity. It's awesome. Even the brands say it's a breath of fresh air. It's not like New York. It's not like LA for different reasons and stuff like that. But it's just like, I like to look at myself as not a community leader, but a community defender.
I love that. Beautiful.
It's community over competition. That is what we echo here in Chicago. That is the conversations we have with our brand partners. That is the conversation we have with each other. It's about making sure that all of our run clubs, all of our spaces are just mini micro spaces for the greater space that we built, and everybody feels welcome, feels comfortable, feels loved and stuff like that, and is able to enjoy this sport. And I want to be able to do that for the rest of my life. So if you want to help me do that, feel free to visit www.lastlapcornerstore.co.
Yeah, thank you. We'll put that in there.
Help me live the life that I'm living right now, because it's fucking awesome. And I have found my purpose. I have found the place that I want to grow old in, and it's awesome.
I cannot wait to see where this adventure takes you. And thank you so much for sharing all of that with us today. Yeah, you and I are early in our friendship, but I can't wait to see where it takes you. So thank you for joining me. Thank you to Sid for introducing us. And I appreciate you so much, Ian. So thank you.
Thank you. Listen, the fact that you keep saying the beginning of our friendship, I just want you to know, is warming me up, because like I'm in a place in my life where like as an adult, I'm trying to build intentional friendships. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I've scared off more people than I've invited in. So it's just like, oh my God, am I making a new friend right now? Yeah. Like, is this happening?
I thought we already were friends. Thank you. Yes. I thought we left that restaurant friends, but maybe you didn't.
You know, sometimes you just don't know if it's mutual. Listen, y'all, at some point in a relationship, you have to have an intentional conversation. What are we now?
What are we doing? In public, what is the intention?
Right, exactly.
Yes, exactly. Many more times. And Chicago is somewhere I come often, so you ain't getting rid of me.
Say less. Please come. I do want to say one last thing.
Yeah.
One last thing. Dads, buy a running stroller. If you are a dad who runs and you have a stroller level baby, from 1 on up, buy a running stroller. First of all, it'll help your running because it's going to slow your ass down. You're probably running too fast already. That's why you can't hit your times. So slow down. And 2, your babies get the best naps.
Yeah.
And the benefit of babies getting naps is they're less grumpy, they're less fussy, and you have a happier wife. I'm just saying.
That's good advice.
I've not been married yet, but my baby does have a mama, and she was a happier person when I took that baby out on my Saturday long runs, because August was cool. He was calm. Get you a stroller. It will literally save so many parts in your relationship.
And what's your stroller of choice?
Oh, so I could not afford like the running strollers. So I had like the strollers, and I had the Cadillac stroller. It was the biggest fucking stroller in the world and stuff like that. But it had the 4 wheels. It was like a regular 4-wheel stroller. I don't remember the brand. I got it off Facebook Market and stuff. It was like right before like these running strollers were like super, super popular. Yeah. Super popular. Yeah. But don't worry. Don't get stressed out, y'all. Don't read the reviews. You don't need the $700 stroller. Get a stroller that has some solid wheels. Take that baby with you on your easy runs and your long runs. They're going to fall asleep. You might have to stop to pick a toy up. That's perfectly fine. Yeah. You ain't going to die. But it's going to be a better evening for you.
So true. Good advice. Perfect advice to end. Not where I export you were going to go with your last piece of advice, but I love it, and very good advice. Ian, thank you.
Thank you.
Before we go any further, I just want to give a quick shout out to the Running for Real team. Without them, I would not be able to do barely anything compared to what I'm able to do today. They are behind the scenes. They are there for me. I am just so appreciative of them. To Jeremy Nessel, our podcast editor, audio consultant, and someone who's been with me since the start. to Sally Pontarelli, our content and operations manager, who is there day to day doing all the things to help me be successful, to Kelsey Wang, our head of design, and Louise Murphy, our associate designer, and finally to Sandy Gutierrez, our photographer and content strategist. I am appreciative of all of you and wouldn't be able to do what I do without you. So appreciative of Ian for sharing, for being vulnerable, for having the courage to talk about that moment, and for all he has done within the community, particularly in Chicago, but just beyond. I am really excited that you got to meet Ian today, and I hope you continue to follow along with what he is doing. There's lots of links in the show notes at runningforreal.com/episode 388 if you want to go out and support. Go find him online, go find 7 on Sundays online, and also to go find links to our sponsors. I want to thank HydroPack, AG1, and Tracksmith for supporting this episode. Again, you can go to runningforreal.com/episode 388 to get those special offers. Check out all the links we talked about today. And those of you who have left a review for Becoming a Sustainable Runner on Amazon, thank you so much for that support. It means so much, as do the Goodreads. I appreciate all of you. I will see you next week for another episode. Thanks for listening.